All right, so this is Video Guys Live. I am James Frasca. I'm a video production specialist here at Video Guys. Quite often, if you call in and you hit that tech support line, you're going to talk to me, and I would be more than happy to answer any questions that you have. I also help produce and run some of the shows that are going on here, not some of them, all of them. And then also Adam, who is operating our TriCaster today. So, as I said, today we're going to be talking about behind the scenes of eduStream. Now, eduStream was quite a bit different than NDI November, which we hosted in November. For NDI November, we did, I think it was 18 or 20 shows that were like 10 to 20 minutes long over the course of an entire month. For eduStream, we really thought that for those educators, it would be interesting to sort of have roundtable discussions. So we wanted to do 3 1 hour to an hour and a half long shows where we had multiple guests with us to give us insight in how they felt that their tools would fit into certain schools' production elements. So in today's show, we're going to be talking about how we got from concept all the way to production. So we're going to talk about planning the virtual event, picking a streaming platform, preparing, testing, and testing again. That was our biggest, I guess you could say, tech tip from our NDI November wrap up. And again, it's probably going to be the same here. Always test, test, test. And then we're going to talk about how we brought in multiple guests simultaneously. And then we're going to end it off with some general just tech tips for virtual events at all. So like I said, our challenge that we gave to ourselves was we wanted to host a show where we brought in multiple guests. Typically for us, when you watch our shows, we have our host and we have one virtual guest. Sometimes, on the rare occasion, we would have 2 virtual guests, but we knew that our TriCaster could bring in way more than 1 or 2 guests. So we wanted to challenge ourselves and be able to bring in up to ultimately 6. And as you can see in the bottom left of this slide here, that concept photo was what we initially basically presented to our Gary, not our. We presented that to Gary and said, Gary, this is what we can do. We have 8 layers, so that means at most we could bring in 6 guests, plus you, plus a background. We have 8 layers. What we ultimately decided on doing was doing 4 layers, and as you can see, we have that test there, 4 guests with 6 layers. And then the bottom right on that slide is a screenshot from our actual event with all of our guests, or well, some of our guests, I should say. Now, one thing that we wanted to point out in this is don't be afraid to experiment, because A, you might find something that works. There's a good chance you'll find something that works. And B, experimenting can lead to creativity, and creativity will make your show look more interesting. So don't be afraid to experiment. Now, like I said, that was our challenge, bring in multiple guests, but then we needed to decide what would our format be, how many guests there would be, who's going to be on the show, and how will you bring them in. So as you can see in our little diagram here, pointed the wrong way, we decided to have 4 people on the screen with Gary in the center. There's different formats that you can do. We decided that we like this because then we could break away to 1 person at a time with a macro, which we'll get into a little bit later. And again, we decided to go with 4 guests because we thought that 6 guests on the screen, plus Gary, plus lower thirds, plus name titles, it just became too much to have on the screen at once, so we decided to go with 4 guests plus Gary. And then we decided for our guests that we would break them up into groups. So Live View was our first show, and they kind of work well with everything, whether it's a PTZ camera directly, a camcorder directly, or a production system directly. So they kind of got their own show, and they got their own show, and they were on by themselves. For day 2, we wanted to do not just PTZ camera roundup, but a roundup with all of our camera manufacturers, or I should say a few of them. So we had JVC on, we had Panasonic on, and we had PTZ Optics talking about all their different cameras, whether they were PTZ cameras or camcorders, and how they would fit into basically any level of production, all the way from the UE4 from Panasonic up to the UE160 from Panasonic and everything that was in between. For day 3, we wanted to talk about production systems. So we had Telestream on, we had NewTek on, we had Epiphan on, and we had Netgear on. Now Netgear is not a production system, but instead they make switches, which makes all of the production systems and the PTZ cameras and any NDI device be able to communicate to each other. So we felt that that would fit perfectly with the production systems. Another thing that we wanted to stress was you have to pick a time and days that are going to be very relevant to your audience. We decided to start on Tuesday, and we broadcast to our Facebook and YouTube, as well as Sherpa, which was our main platform for eduStream. And we decided to do that because we already have a known audience for Tuesdays at 3 o'clock. We decided to keep that 3 o'clock time slot for Wednesday and Thursday because we already had the time slot established, even if it was a different day. And then specifically, we chose 3 o'clock because most schools are out by 3 o'clock and the teachers and educators are available to watch, and even some students at that point. The next thing that we did was we had to pick a streaming platform. And ultimately, we landed on Sherpa from Telestream, and Sherpa worked really well for us because, well, we could schedule live events, we could keep track of event registration, and we could use those features like Q&A and polls. And I wanted to just show you really quick how easy and simple the interface is with Sherpa. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. So, this is the Sherpa dashboard, I guess you could call it, and you can make all of your events in here. And for this example, I made this Sherpa demo, and it really is super simple to make the event and then to turn on those interactive elements like Q&A and polls. So you're just gonna click on the event, click on edit, and then you're gonna go down to interactives, and there's a bunch of different interactives that you can choose: Q&A, polls, slides, checkpoints, help, and even chat. Ultimately, we decided that we wanted to use the Q&A and the polls to keep the audience interactive. Polls, so we could collect analytics from our viewers, and then Q&A because we knew that we had these great panelists on with us, and those panelists were going to be able to answer those questions. And I'm really glad that we did have those that option, because we did end up getting quite a bit of questions and the panelists were able to answer them. Now, one of my favorite features is in the dashboard. This is what you would see once you start your stream. You can get your encoder settings from here. I'm not going to show that, but basically it's just going to give you your stream key and your stream URL. I'm not going to show you ours because then I don't want anyone streaming to ours, and you shouldn't be sharing yours either. But the other thing that I wanted to show you in the dashboard is underneath Q&A, there's a Q&A presenter mode. And what this is going to do is it's going to create a presenter mode for the questions that come in. So this is what Gary saw when he was doing the show live. The questions that show up on here are only going to be shown after a moderator approves them and sends them to this screen. Now, that is very useful because you don't have to worry about your presenter seeing spam or questions that are unrelated or, et cetera, et cetera. They're only going to see the questions that are relevant and are good questions. So that is, just a little bit of a demo of Sherpa and why we chose to use it and why we really liked it. So the next thing that we had to do was when we reached out to our guests and said, hey, can you do this? And they said, yep, sure thing. We wanted to send them a checklist of things to make sure we're working on their end. Do they have access to a PTZ camera, or at the very least some kind of box camera, so they're not relying on the camera that is associated with most laptops. We knew that somebody like Paul Richards from PTZ Optics, he's got this great studio, he's got multi-cameras. We knew he was going to be totally fine, but We didn't know how, for example, Laurent from Netgear was going to come in because we had never done a show with him before. We've done shows with Netgear before, but not specifically Laurent. And Laurent ended up being able to, again, also have a little bit more of a production value because we reached out in advance and said, hey, don't use just your normal webcam, use, something else that will make you look a little bit better. And then in return, the entire show looks a little bit better. Definitely make sure that you set up a test call with your guests. We decided to do our test calls the Friday before and the Monday before to give us a couple days in case something catastrophically wasn't working. And then also make sure that you have a backup plan. In our case, we used Epiphan Connect to bring our guests into our show, and then we used NDI Teams as a backup. In terms of preparation, we just wanted to show you a quick overview of all of the physical hardware that we are using in our studio. I'm not going to stay on this slide too long. If you want to check this stuff out, you can pause the video. You can see exactly what we're using in our studio right now, what we were using for eduStream, and you can even check them out on our website. And if you have any questions about any of these products that you see here, you can give us a call as well at 800-323-2325, and I'd be more than happy to explain how they fit into our studio and how they could fit into yours. What I wanted to do was more show how everything is connected and what each device is being used for. So as you can see, we're using a TriCaster TC1 Pro, and we're using a Netgear M4250 switch to connect all of our NDI devices. Let's start with the bottom right there. You see that we have a laptop that is connected via NDI to our switch, which is then communicating to the TC1 Pro. And quite simply, we're using NDI screen capture from NDI Tools 5.5 to be able to get this laptop screen onto our TriCaster. That's how you're seeing this right now. We're just doing a screen capture from a PowerPoint presentation on here. We're also going to be extracting that NDI Teams call from this laptop to our production system. We have a KY-PZ400N PTZ camera from JVC. That's the camera all the way to the right. Then we also have a PTZ Optics Move 4K, which is the PTZ camera all the way to the left. And again, those are connecting to our switch, which is connecting to the TriCaster, and those are all both NDI cameras. We have a Panasonic CX350, which is this main camera right here. That is our main camera. It's a 4K camera, very nice camera. And then we also have, I apologize, that is connected via SDI directly into the TriCaster. And then also directly connected to the TriCaster is our Sumo 19, which is being used for a dual purpose. It's being used as a monitor and a recorder. So I'm able to use it as a confidence monitor, make sure that I can see myself, and that's how I know that I'm pointing to the right thing. But it's also being used to record our show so we can easily extract it off of it and then bring it into our workstation to edit, chop up, put on YouTube, or archive it, whatever we want to do with it. So let's talk about some of the software that we were using to bring in our guests. Like I said, our primary way of bringing our guests in was with Epiphan Connect. And what Epiphan Connect does is it allows you to extract up to 4 callers from a Teams call and convert those into an SRT stream to then bring into any production system that can read an SRT stream. Our TriCaster TC1 Pro can bring in, I believe, up to 16 SRT sources at once. Granted, we only needed 4, we only used 4. One reason that we really like Epiphan Connect is because you get to have those isolated audio channels. I don't know if you've ever been in a Teams call, but sometimes Teams can override the audience, cut people off, adjust their audio levels automatically. And when you're doing a production system or a show like this, you want to be in full control of your audio. You don't want some machine necessarily automating everything for you. However, there are some limitations with Epiphan Connect. One being that it takes about 5 to 10 minutes for it to extract those SRT feeds. Now, that doesn't mean that it's hard and it takes you 10 minutes. You can do something else while the extraction is happening. It only really takes about a minute for you to do everything that you need to do. And we actually have a little video that we're going to show in a second here, explaining the process of bringing somebody from a Teams call into Epiphan Connect, and then Epiphan Connect SRT feed into a TriCaster. So let's play that video real quick. Click on participants. So I'm going to click start on her name. I am going to make sure that she is set to listener. I'm going to copy the stream URL, and then I'm going to hit start. So I'm going to go to my desired input. I'm going to go to source, local, add IP source, and now I'm going to again hit add new IP source. I'm going to use a web stream, name the input, and then I'm going to paste that URL into there. Take into note that you will have to restart your session in your TriCaster. So now we're back into our TriCaster session. So I'm going to go back over to my input. I'm going to go to local, and now I just need to find that new input, which is right here, Jennifer Epiphan Connect. And as you can see, now if I bring her up in my preview window, there is Jennifer. So as you can see, it's really easy to bring an SRT feed from Epiphan Connect into a production system like a TriCaster or even a Wirecast gear. Now, we had already mentioned this, you always want to make sure that you have a backup plan. And our backup plan was to be using NDI Teams, which can also extract callers from Teams and convert them into an NDI feed to then bring into a production system. This can be any production system that can accept a NDI feed. And of course, the TriCaster TC1 Pro allows for us to extract, allows us to bring in an NDI feed into the system. So very similar to Epiphan Connect, it also gives you isolated audio channels. So this was a good backup to use if for whatever reason Epiphan Connect was not working. I did want to just quickly show you another real quick demo on how to bring in a guest via NDI Teams, and we can actually show you that live. We're going to bring in someone else from our marketing team, another video production specialist, Jennifer. So one thing that you need to make sure that you do is next to these three dots up here in the top right, you have to go to your settings, and you have to make sure that under app permissions that under production capabilities, network device interface, or NDI, is enabled. So you're going to want to make sure that this is enabled over here, this thing that's changing colors, because I realize now you can't see my mouse, but that's okay, it doesn't matter. So once you do that, there's one more step that you have to do. You have to join your call, and I'm going to, okay, hold on, I apologize, I need to turn on NDI webcam. Make sure that you download NDI tools, because all of these are really, really good tools, tool sets that you can use. And because we're doing this live, what NDI webcam allows you to do is take an NDI source off of your network and make it so it appears as a feed. So I'm actually going to turn on Mix 1 from our TriCaster, and in a second here, this should pop up as what our TriCaster is seeing. So now this is what all of our guests are going to see. So another benefit of using NDI and Teams working well together. Now, screen capture from NDI tools can actually work with any webcam interface or call meeting app. So now I'm going to join this call, which I believe Jenny will already be in. And as you can see, there is Jenny. Hi, Jenny. So you guys cannot hear Jenny yet, but what I'm going to do now is I am going to hit on the more dots here. I'm going to go to streaming, and now I'm going to hit broadcast over NDI. Once I do that, in our TriCaster, you will be able to see this input. So now I'm going to throw it over to Adam for a few minutes here, and he's going to show you how to bring in your guest from Teams into the TriCaster.
Hey everyone, so as you can see, we are in our session on the TriCaster. Now that Jim has activated NDI over Teams. If we go to any input and go to the source, under the laptop connected through NDI, Microsoft Teams would have shown up. And we just now need to select Jennifer. And if you see in our preview window, Jennifer has now loaded into that box, and we can now bring her audio in.
All right, very cool. So now, as you can see, we have, nope, pointed to the wrong box. Jennifer is in this box right here. And Jennifer, why don't you say hello real quick, just so everybody can hear you.
Yeah, I could just say hi really quick. Happy to be here on Videoguys Live.
Okay, very cool. So this is kind of the workflow that we used for bringing in all of our guests, whether it was Epiphan Connect or using NDI in Teams. And one thing that I do want to just show off real quick, because we're kind of happy with how it came out, is when you watch the show, you're going to see that we were able to break away into talking to an individual person. And by doing the way that we did that was by using macros. And so what a macro is it's an option that the TriCaster allows you to record a set number of inputs and then be able to designate or assign a button on your keyboard or on your control surface to allow you to hit that one button and it does all of those recorded actions. So Adam, if you wouldn't mind real quick, show off that macro of hitting number 7 on our keyboard, which will break off all of these and bring us back just to this. And I keep going this way, but it's this way. So we just wanted to show off real quick how to use a macro and bring it into another layer of making your shows that much more interesting. So now I'm going to take this out because I don't need to talk to Jennifer anymore. Thank you, Jenny. And so without further ado, I said we're going to end it off with just some general tech tips. And so here we are. One thing that we want to say is test in the same environment as you are going to be doing your live stream. There is really no point in doing a test if they're going to be in a different environment, because you don't know what their service is going to be like. You don't know what their camera is going to be like. You don't know what their framing is going to be like. So you want to make sure that your guests are testing in the same environment that they're going to be in when they do the actual show. Next thing is, if they can't make the test call, to ask them if they can join, at least 15 to 20 minutes early. Typically, when we do our live streams, we bring our guests in about 10 to 15 minutes early. If they're unable to make a test call, we will ask them to join closer to 30 or 40 minutes early, just to make sure that all of our technology is working as well as their technology. And a perfect example of that is Paul Richards from PTZ Optics was not able to make our test call on Monday. So we asked him to join about a half an hour before we went live on Wednesday with him. And he went above and beyond and actually joined about an hour beforehand, and everything ended up working out totally fine. The last thing that we have for a tech tip is to always recommend that your guests use headphones. That way there is no feedback loop. The last thing that you want to have happen is you talking to your guests and then their computer speaker projecting the audio, and then their microphone picking up your audio and then sending it back to you, and then it just creates that constant feedback loop, and it's not good. That's why I had this little headpiece in, because I didn't want you guys to hear Jenny from the laptop. So that's pretty much all that we wanted to talk about for the behind the scenes of EduStream. I hope that you guys learned something. I hope that you guys liked the demos that we did. If you have any questions about any of this, we would be more than happy to get on a phone call with you and explain everything in much further detail. You can give us a call, 800-323-2325. My name is James Frasca. There's a good chance that you're going to talk to me, because I am one of the video production specialists here at Video Guys. Make sure that you check us out on Facebook and YouTube, Instagram, and all the good stuff. We're live every Tuesday at 3 o'clock Eastern, and that's all I have. So as Gary would say, peace.
Video Guys is available Monday through Friday. Give us a call at 1-800 323-2325. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Instagram to stay connected with all of our updates. And you can like us on Facebook. Keep an eye out for our live videos, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.